And we're live. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Nelson from Central Florida. It's the 24th of June, 2025. And this is the Kills Health afternoon live stream. Normally we have it at 3 p.m., but today we were going to have a guest at 3:30. She is late. I hope she's able to make it. In the meantime, we are live. Thank you for being here. Please type in the chat where you're watching from. And please like, comment, share, subscribe. You're probably watching on the Kills channels. If you are, you can jump over to YouTube at the real Dr. Nelson and subscribe to my channel as well. Thank you. Miss Laugh a Lot, Larry, Cheryl, J Bud, Catherine, Juliet. If you don't make a comment, by the way, I don't know who's here. If you're listening and you make a comment, then I can tell who's on. Again, thank you for being here. Looks like our guest is about to come in. And as soon as she uncovers her camera, okay. So tell me where you're watching from, please. All right.
Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay. Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine.
Okay. I was testing my mic and for some reason it wasn't responding, but
I was afraid I was going to be late for you. My meeting ran a few minutes longer than anticipated. I'm like, oh my God, the clock is ticking. I got to hop off.
all right. So today we have I'm gonna read little bio here. You have it in the descriptions of YouTube, the show notes. But let me try to properly introduce our guest. Her name is Ada Ramos, like I would pronounce it in Spanish because it's Ada Ramos for those of you. Uh, she she is a dedicated metabolic health practitioner and wellness mentor with over 2 decades of experience helping others reclaim their vitality. With a master's degree of science in Oriental Medicine and credentials in nutrition, fitness, and weight management, she brings a holistic, no gimmick approach to health that's rooted in both science and lived experience. After her own long journey through chronic pain, migraines, and frustrations of diet and culture, Ada discovered the healing power of whole food strategic movement, quality sleep, and mindset work. Today, she guides clients away from restrictive fats and towards sustainable transformation grounded in her five essential pillars: nutrition, movement, stress management, sleep, and mindset. Known for her compassionate, real talk style and deep cultural competence, Ada has spent the last 8 years working primarily with women of color to reverse conditions like insulin resistance, prediabetes, obesity, and hypertension. She believes food is medicine and that healing starts from the inside out. Her motto: create habits to make it a lifestyle.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being here today, Ada. We had been working for a few months on trying to get you live and
No, we made it finally.
scheduling finally allowed it. Okay. So that's a long list of things, Ada. You
I,
are a lot of things if we were going to describe you, but many of the things that you have accomplished and studied and practiced as a physician and also metabolic health provider. When I look at the health of people, knowing that 88 to 93, some studies show about that percentage of people who are metabolically sick, which means maybe only 7% are really healthy. So I don't want to be dismissive of that 7%, but whatever you're doing, if you are really healthy, continue doing it. I'm interested in reversing disease, chronic problems that people live with, and it's basically part of that 90%, 93% of people who are chronically ill with one thing or another. So I'd like to focus on two things right now. First of all, I want you to tell us your personal story because I know you have a personal story
yes.
and you have been able to reverse a few things and have some successes with low carbohydrate diet.
Mhm.
And then from the point of view of uh, your expertise, you also basically you're a coach using all that you have learned to help people reverse chronic disease. So tell us who you are and what happened to you, what successes you've had, and what do you do now.
Yeah. Well, first of all, so excited to finally connect with you on this platform. Thank you for the invitation. I love chatting with you about all things health and, challenge you a little bit here and there too, right? I say, I hate to be to stereotype, but I call myself your typical Latina, in the forever search of being skinny, always chasing skinny, the smallest version of myself, chronic dieter since I was in my 20s, at whatever cost. Disregard of what am I doing to my body by hopping on this new fad, on this new weight loss trends. I didn't care. I actually didn't even know that there was such a thing as implications when you embark on a diet. I just wanted to lose the weight. So I did that for throughout my entire 20s and mid 30s, that hop off, hop on, hop off, hop on, lose the weight, regain the weight, lose the weight, regain the weight, not understanding what was happening on the inside. I was just chasing skinny. But it wasn't until I was about 35 that I work at a cancer hospital. And I remember clearly seeing a nurse that from one day to the next, or at least it seemed that way to me, she was like half her size. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Whatever you're doing, I want to do too. And she told me she's doing the ketogenic diet. It is the first time I have ever heard the word ketogenic. Even though I did Atkins years prior and lost like 10 pounds in a week. I had no idea what ketosis was. I didn't understand what I was doing when I did Atkins for that very short period of time. All I know is that I stopped eating carbs. And from there on, fear of carbs. That's the only thing that taught me. But anyway, I'm
And
digressing.
I think many of us have done that. And when you go back to review the Atkins books, he does talk about ketones and all that, but it was it was a small part of the whole thing.
But I had no
Uh,
idea
yeah.
because she mentioned ketogenic. And of course, I didn't question what is ketogenic. All I said, so what do you eat? That's the first thing we ask, right? And this is her words: I eat a lot of butter. The moment she said that, I tuned her out. There's no way this is healthy. There's no way eating butter is healthy. So I totally tuned her out. Fast forward a year, again, on my search for the latest trend, I enrolled in a 6-week challenge at a local boot camp. It was a 6-week challenge. And guess what? The diet that they were endorsing was a ketogenic diet. So this is the second time that I hear the word ketogenic. So I signed up for this program, and they give me like 3 pieces of paper. And that's all I got about how to follow this diet. Well, now looking back, I know that what I went through was the infamous keto flu. You name it, I got it. It was terrible. I mean, I was falling asleep at red lights. I broke out as if I was a teenager. I was super tired. I mean, I felt miserable following this diet. However, I don't know what was it that clicked, that instead of just following the pamphlet, I decided to start reading about this new diet. And in the process of researching to making sure that I wasn't doing something that was going to harm me out of fear of dying of a heart attack by all this butter that I'm eating, I started researching about this way of eating. And my world just went upside down. What I was learning, not only did it ignite a passion for learning about nutrition, but it was also a, wow, how come no one's talking about this? How come everything that these people are telling me to do is the total opposite of the guidelines and the feedback and the instructions that we're getting from our medical associations? Totally different. And it forever changed my life. First of all, it changed my life. Why? Because part of the challenge was to track your blood sugars. And boy, oh boy, was I in for a surprise. I got myself a glucometer. Did not know what that was. I actually won it as part of a raffle in the challenge. And I had to track my blood sugars daily, and my fasting blood sugars were in the 150s. So your friend here was pretty much diabetic. I cannot tell you that for sure, 100%, because I never checked an A1C. I never checked my insulin. I didn't even know what that was.
Well, let me confirm what you're saying, because there are 4 diagnostic criteria for diabetes. It's not only the A1C, and you, by the way, you could be diabetic with a A1C that falls in the pre-diabetes area, but one of the 4 criteria is 2 fasting blood sugars of over 125. So if you had only 2 over 125, which if you were running 140s
and 150s, yeah.
So that is diagnostic of type 2 diabetes.
Well, so I self-diagnosed myself with diabetes because at my yearly checkup, my blood sugars, for whatever reason, that one time a year, which is another thing that, got me into doing what I do, because like, if that happened to me, I can only imagine the number of patients that are walking around being diabetics and having no clue, because their blood sugars that one time a year that you go is like 110. Oh, no big deal. No big deal. No question about what's your lifestyle like, what's your family history like. Let me do an A1C, let me check your insulin, none of that. So that entire experience changed my life forever. Forever. Because now not only did I become passionate about learning about food and nutrition, but also about diabetes and blood sugar management. And I was able to reverse it. I was able to reverse chronic migraines. I was on 2 different injections for migraines. I was on 4 medications for chronic joint and muscle pain. Like, I could not sit still. I had buzzing coming out of my neck through my arms because I have severe problems with my neck. You name it, I have it. And a dietary change, switching my metabolism, I was able to come off pain medication. How does that happen? Why does that happen? And then mood disorders. I was able to get, stop medications for that, and my mood stabilized. What? Food can do this? A metabolic switch can do this? Fast forward, I started coaching, for free, just to test what I was learning. And now I do what I do because, again, I'm not the only one walking around with all of these things, not having a clue, and understanding the power of having that metabolic switch. So that's how I started. I started with very strict keto, and I did that for about 4 years, and then I started introducing carbohydrates back in, and I was not well informed as to how to transition out of keto, and I gained some weight back. And with more trial and error, I found the sweet spot of how much carbohydrates I can consume and maintain my weight. And then, perimenopause happened, and then I gained some weight again. And then I had to pivot and change things again. And now I am at, in my opinion, the best shape of not of my life. I was pretty lean when I was full blown keto, I have to say. But I'm still very happy with the way that I look. Having brought carbs back in, more so for sustainability purposes than anything else. I just enjoy eating carbs, not because I need them in terms of, and I also don't have any medical conditions that require me to be in ketosis all the time. So I call myself low carb-ish. I can eat any range of 95 to 150 grams of carbs, or even more. I can eat 300 grams of carbs, but I tend not to go there because I am fully aware of the glucose response. I mean, I still to this day wear a glucometer, a continuous glucose monitor, and been wearing one for 5 years. It's a great tool to keep me accountable, to continue to learn about my metabolism and how flexible I am, so that I can continue to be responsible and eat the carbs in a way that is not going to derail me and bring me back to diabetes and then the host of other things that can come from constantly spiking your blood sugars and having high insulin and things like that. I am very data driven. I track a lot of data. I check blood work every 3 to 6 months to make sure that I am keeping myself accountable and on track, because I do not want to regress the improvements that keto brought to my life. So I did keto for 4 years. I started introducing fasting about 2 years into keto. I have a love-hate relationship with fasting. I think I abused it a little bit. It kind of like became a disordered eating for me. So now I don't practice fasting anymore. I do follow the rules of no snacking, and I eat in a 12-hour window, give or take. If I'm not hungry, I may push it to 14 hours. Or if I'm super hungry, I may eat in a 10-hour window. I mean, all depends. But as a general guideline, I try to do 12 and then do snacking. And I hit ketosis pretty much regularly. And I try that, especially when I'm very active and I go on long walks. I walk a lot. I can hit ketosis of 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 by, just physical activity. Is still eating quite a few grams of carbs. So that's where I'm at now. But I contribute my results and the ability to be able to live that life now to being keto for 4 years in a very strict way.
So and that happens with many people. You're obviously not the only one. That does happen with many people when they have been able to reverse all or most of the damage. By the way, you said that you were, I don't know, you said you were fitter before or something. You look pretty good for 29. So
40,
uh,
47.
throwing your towel there, but yeah,
I'm
that's
proud of
fine.
it.
You're proud of it. So I believe some people are able to tolerate some carbohydrates in general, but you're still on a ketogenic diet and you do tracking. So, because you've mentioned to me in conversations, yeah, I still can have these foods and be able to produce ketones. And part of the reason you said you're tracking, because even if one day you were to eat 300, you couldn't eat 300 grams of carbohydrates every single day.
That would be super irresponsible of me.
Yeah.
Yes.
So some days are lower than others. And
Correct. Correct.
you've had, I mean, to me, diabetes is the top of the chain, the top of the mountain of metabolic dysfunction. Okay, I mean, there is nothing, everything, all the metabolic diseases, and they're, we could have a long list of them, uh, mostly influenced by blood sugars, and whether you're diabetic or pre-diabetic, everything else does have a relationship, whether it's mental illness, Alzheimer's, PCOS, all these things. So now we have a couple of questions. Let's take these two questions here. One, let's start with this one. I mentioned the four criteria, and A1C is a criteria for diagnosing diabetes, type 2 diabetes in particular, when it goes above 6.4. In other words, when it hits 6.5 or higher, that is diabetes. Between 5.7 and 6.4 is pre-diabetes. I actually don't believe there is a pre-diabetes, as if you were waiting before you started getting complications. Well, the complications start happening at 5.7. So, anyways, so that's one criteria. But do you know that that criteria has only been a criteria for diagnosis of diabetes for only 15 years? Okay, before 2010, 2009, the A1C was not used for the diagnosis or as a diagnostic criteria. The other three are fasting blood sugars on two occasions or more of over 125, 126 or higher. When I graduated from medical school, that number used to be 140. Uh, that was a long time ago. Uh, a random blood sugar of over 200 with classic symptoms. The classic symptoms of diabetes, when it presents acutely, is weight loss, eating a lot, and polydipsia and polyuria, which means drinking a lot of water and urinating a lot. Uh, so one random over 200 with signs and symptoms, two fastings over 126, the hemoglobin A1C, and a glucose tolerance test uh, is another criteria. Usually should be confirmed with a second. I never bother with doing a second one because if you've had a 2 or 3 hours glucose tolerance test, it's a pain. They're gonna stick you 4 or 5 times to get the blood to run the test, and usually with just one of them, I proceeded. So those are the four uh, diagnostic criteria. This other question, even though it was posted, it says Dr. Nelson. I think this is better answered by you, Dr. Nelson. This is Chris, by the way. Uh, I crave carbs after exercise. Why? What is best to eat? Protein does not help.
Well, as everything else, we will need to know more information. What is Chris's situation right now? Is he currently uh, what level of insulin resistance is he at? Is he already diabetic? If he's just experiencing some hypoglycemia, is he just at the early stage of insulin resistance? What type of glucose intolerance are we talking about here? Do you have weight to lose? Um, Craving carbohydrates after exercise just means that the body depleted its glycogen stores, if you were to ask me, and it's just in an effort to replenishing them, it's going to make you crave them to replenish those glycogen stores.
Uh, you are, among the things I read, you are also, don't know if you have, I know you've done athletic training and exercise coaching as well. So when you exercise, do you exercise fasted, or do you carbo load, or do any of these things that a lot of people in the exercise world do?
Depends on the stage of life that I'm at. I'm in perimenopause right now. So I'm hyper aware of stressors. I don't need to entice my body to feel more stressed than it needs to be at this stage of my life. Several years ago, when I was full-blown keto, first of all, I was not even aware of perimenopause. So that wasn't in my mind to really mind my stress and how fasted exercise is a stressor. Exercise is a stressor. Fasting is another stressor. And who am I speaking to? Am I speaking to somebody that's already high stress in other ways? So that's just adding way too much in your stress cup. So you have to take that into consideration. So back then, I was still younger. I was already at my leanest. And I used to do fasted exercises all the time. I attribute my leanness to part of it to fasting exercise. Today, I don't like to exercise fasted anymore, but that's because of the stage of life where I'm at right now.
So how many, within what period of time do you eat something before you exercise?
And it also depends because I'm always hyper aware, and that's how I remain metabolically flexible. I'm always in the back of my mind, I'm always asking myself, how is my glycogen stores right now? And that will be determined by what did I eat before. If I know that I ate a higher carb meal, I know that my glycogen stores are full. So if I know my glycogen stores are full, do I really need to feed? No. If I've been keeping a low carb and my glycogen stores are lower, there's no harm in my eyes for someone that is metabolically flexible to eat. So I base my decisions based on where am I today, how are my glycogen stores, because I want to fill them up, deplete them, fill them up, deplete them, fill them up, deplete them. That's how I live my life in terms of remaining metabolically flexible.
So he doesn't mention if he, he mentions after exercise, doesn't mention if he's fasting before for any amount of hours. But I know the people that do exercise and they do it fasted, then they'll have a meal sometime after the exercise, you know. And if you're getting hungry, well, maybe that's time to eat.
The way that
And
I look at it is, Dr. Nelson, is the following. If you eat before, you're just fueling your exercise. If you eat after, you're just replenishing what you used up. Simple. Eat, that's going to be your fuel to fuel the exercise. Also, what kind of exercise are you doing? Are you going glycolytic? Are you doing more steady state? You're pulling from different energy systems depending on the exercise that you're doing. So if you're going to be doing something high intensity, you're going to hit that glycolysis. So, you might want to have some carbs on board to support that exercise. If you're just going for a walk, if you're just doing something low, steady state, and you're going to be tapping more into fat burning, no, I don't feel like it's necessary to eat carbs before that. So these conversations are very nuanced.
all righty. If you have any other questions, please put them in the chat, preceded by QQQ. Uh, Ada, I have another question, and this has to, you deal a lot with chronic diseases. What? Tell me about your general approach when you see patients with whatever metabolic dysfunction they present with. What, in general, do you do?
Well, I have a program that it's in I developed my program with the same understanding that you described at the beginning of our conversation, that 80 to 90% of us are walking around with at least one marker of insulin resistance. So I can safely assume that when someone calls me up, they're going to have some level of insulin resistance. I can safely assume that. So that's why I developed my program the way that I did, to treat insulin resistance. Midway through our program, then I will tailor that depending on who you are. If you're not severely insulin resistant, let's say that all you have is a little bit of obesity, like you're overweight, but you have no hypertension, you have no cholesterol issues, you have no blood sugar dysregulation, I don't feel like it's necessary to keep you so restricted for so long. But I do, my first part of the program, always, 99.9, there is that person that ketosis is just not for them. Okay. But most of them, I put them through a phase of keto. Most of them. I do an elimination process where I slowly take out the sources of glucose in their diet. Very slowly. I don't cold turkey anyone. I think so. It takes me a month to get you into ketosis. And that is just to serve as a reset, to remind the cells, hey, you know, you can use fat for fuel. You don't have to depend on carbohydrates all the time. Because we lose that sensitivity. We become such efficient glucose burners that we forget to utilize fat for fuel. So I like to put all my clients through ketosis as a reset, as a metabolic reset. And the more metabolically deranged they are, the longer that is. It could be up to 3 months of ketosis. And of course, we're tracking markers, we're tracking blood sugars, we're tracking insulin, and we're tracking body fat loss, so that we see, are you a candidate to transition out of the severe restriction, and can we make this more sustainable? Because of experience. First of all, when I first started keto, I was the typical keto evangelist, by the way. It was keto or nothing else. Do not speak to me about anything else. Okay, I was full-blown evangelist when it comes to keto. But after working for so many years with people, real people, I came to the conclusion that not everybody can sustain it, and people will develop poor relationship with food afterwards. That has been my experience. Um, um, I respect your audience and anybody else that has had a different experience, but that has been my experience with my audience. And to me, at the end of the day, consistency and sustainability is what's going to win the game long term. So if you're unable to sustain ketosis, if you're unable to sustain the lifestyle, and you keep hopping off, and going crazy because, oh my God, I messed up and I ate a piece of bread or I ate an apple, and creating bad relationship with food, to me that does more harm than anything else. So depending
And,
on.
you know, we can eat an apple or bread and have that kind of thinking, or you can, okay, maybe I shouldn't be eating that, especially if you are tracking and you're monitoring and you see your blood sugars respond to the things you're eating. uh, and not everybody can do it. However, knowledge is very important. uh, how do you feel about ultra processed foods?
Oh no, I mean, I don't think there's a question about it. And I consider diet like a religion. Tons of religions out there, tons. Which one has the truth? Which one has the truth? Which one is the religion to go by? Same thing with diet. Tons of diets out there. Which one is the best diet? We all have in common. We all have something in common. Religion, regardless of the religion that it is, we all believe in a higher power. Call it Buddha, call it spirit, call it energy, call it God, call it Jesus. We all believe in a higher power. All right. That's what we all have in common, regardless of the label. Diet is the same way. Regardless of what you call yourself, vegan, carnivore, we all have something in common. We know that ultra processed food have no business in our diet.
Yet some people call themselves either vegan or vegetarians or animal based, plant based, even carnivore. And I hope it doesn't happen as frequent as I think it does, but sometimes we confuse, okay, I'm vegan, but then I have mostly junk food,
Mhm.
ultra processed food, because
It's plant
they
based.
assure me that has no animal products, and your health is still wrecked,
I
right?
believe that's just lack of education,
Yeah.
because it's not just about the end, it's the end product. The amount of processing to get to that product is what um, makes the food, I hate using the word good or bad, but less ideal Okay, it's like a full-blown real food potato versus a potato chip. Okay, instant oatmeal versus still cold oats. Okay, it's the processing of the food that really is that making that food less ideal for us. And the more processing it is, the more natural things are taken out, and the more things have to be put in it to make it, one, palatable, and to make it shelf stable. So the more processed the food is, the less ideal it is. The less processed the food is, the better it is.
So knowledge is key, but sometimes the willingness to accept that knowledge, excuse me, is also very important. I just happened to have spent a couple of days with someone that maybe about a year ago was diagnosed with being pre-diabetic, and his A1C was like 6.4. I gave him all the information, a couple of videos on reversing type 2 diabetes, explained to him, sent him uh, multiple material from different sources about which foods to eat. And I wasn't even suggesting to him, you do know that I eat mostly carnivore, but I wasn't even trying to convert him to that. I was just especially emphasizing the foods that he must avoid, right? So it's got to be a year later. I happened to ask him, "What's your A1C?" "Oh, it's 7.1." I say, "Okay, so you're full blown diabetic and beyond the number that we're supposed to be even looking to maintain below that number." "Oh, I thought that was my cholesterol number." I say, "Okay." Uh, the next 3 or 4 meals, he proceeded to have noodles, tons of bread, pastries after the meals. Uh, he already had a lot of the information. I'm not going to say all the information, but a lot of the information. And he was worse than a year ago. Anyways, so sometimes, and this happens probably to you, I know it happened to me, uh, we were not ready to hear, even if we heard it, we were not ready to
To receive it.
adopt that message. And that I find that very challenging because I would like to have, I mean, there is no reason. Type 2 diabetes, there are many types of diabetes. Type 1 diabetes, there are a few others for other reasons, but we shouldn't even know that much about type 2 diabetes because it's almost 100% reversible and preventable as well.
Preventable. That's the key. I worked with a lady. She did my program. I want to say it was during COVID, so maybe around 2020. And I just had a 3 month follow up with her this morning. She reached out to me in April, and she's like, I'm diabetic. I'm like, did I not teach you anything? Number one, no, just kidding. And I was reviewing blood work from back in 2020. Her insulin was 3.5. Everything was clustered, like beautiful. But that was the time where I was a keto evangelist, and I neglected to teach her sustainable habits. And she just became so obsessed over food that she said, "F it." These are her words. "F it." And then she just started eating all the things. And 5 years later, became diabetic, 7.1 um, A1C. So we've been working together since April. She just sent me new blood work. She's down to 6.0 on her A1C. Has only lost 10 pounds, but because, and I only say only, not to diminish the power of 10-pound weight loss. I'm saying only because in the medical establishment, they feel like you can only reverse diabetes if you lose this massive amount of weight.
They attribute the diabetes to the weight,
The weight gain, exactly.
but is it really, or are they both the product of the same thing?
I
And we
have,
could
I
discuss
know,
what that same thing is, but are they the product of the same thing?
I mean, I have plenty of people. I know plenty of people that are slim and they're pre-diabetics, and I have obese people that are barely pre-diabetic.
And when you change your diet, we're here basically keto, carnivore. Most of the community listening is low carb at least, and mostly. But when you change your diet and go on a low carbohydrate diet, a ketogenic diet, and by the way, someone made the comment, "Oh, she's not keto." Well, she is keto. She maintains ketosis very frequently.
Yes.
Uh, but
And I have the numbers to prove it.
And we recently had Ben Asadi in our Zoom call, and he discussed metabolic flexibility. He used some of the language you just used, so I don't know if you like to read his stuff as well. But uh, the point is, I forgot what the point was that I was trying to make.
About
Uh,
the difference, the connection.
yeah, they people change their diet, and so many things improve before that weight loss is done with. You may have lost 10, 20 pounds, and all of a sudden your chronic pain is gone. It wasn't because of 10 pounds of weight loss. It's because you have cut all the things that were causing inflammation in your body, and the pain now has gone away. People who didn't need to have their knee replaced, they only may have lost 10 pounds or 20 pounds, and the knee pain goes away. Trust me, it's not because of only 10 or 20 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
But there are many doctors, and you just reminded me, someone uh, I have met, and she saw my picture. This one's here, and oh yeah, I just said I have reversed my diabetes, my hypertension, and a bunch of other things. Oh, that's all because you lost weight. So it is what you said is absolutely true. It's just, oh, it's got to be because you lost weight.
Yeah. For my experience, actually, Dr. Nelson, you just reminded me that I didn't share that part of my experience. It took me 4 months of keto to lose a single pound. 4 months. Old me, always chasing quick fixes, would drop the towel right then and there. This is not working. But because of what I was learning, I was so enthusiastic about continuing to learn that I didn't give up. Once it clicked, it did melt off. The weight melted off. But it took me 4 months to lose a single pound.
And I'm curious, you mentioned the program you had gotten into, all the keto flu symptoms. Were they addressing
I didn't
the,
have a coach. I didn't have a coach. I had 3 pieces of paper.
were they addressing the keto flu problems that you may develop? Yeah, no. Okay. Yeah, that's uh
No clue. They didn't know either. I'm sure they endorsed the diet because it was becoming popular. I mean, that was 2017. That was the height of keto, 2017, when everybody knew about it.
well, there have been ups and downs. Me being a few years older than you, remember that in the 70s there was a keto craze, and then later in the 90s, in the 70s was the first book Dr. Atkins published,
Yeah,
and then second or third edition came in 1992. uh, I read that one. My son lost some weight. He wanted to lose with it. He wasn't that much of a weight, but and I did lose like 40 pounds. And then, of course, I have used a ketogenic diet, Dr. Atkins diet, basically to lose 40 pounds multiple times. And then I went back to eating my regular way.
so how do you do that? How do you stop keto, transition, and not regain the weight?
No, but I did regain the weight.
But
is what
why?
I'm saying. Because I went back to eat because I did not do the right thing. I mean, now I have changed my diet and, went from this guy to this guy. And I've been there for about a year. I do not worry about the weight itself that much. I want my blood sugars to stay where they are. So my A1C has been 5.4 now for a year and a half, over a year and a half. And I do track my blood sugar. Right now it's 115, by the way. Uh, and I did have lunch a couple of hours ago. Uh, Steak and eggs, by the way.
Sounds delicious.
Unfortunately, by the way, unfortunately, it was not at home. It was an establishment. I'm not going to mention the name, but as soon as they brought the plate,
You knew. Mm.
I smelled the vegetable seed oils. I still ate it, but uh, I didn't think about that before. I was with my wife. She wanted to eat. So,
Well, you bring up a good point because I remember very specifically while I was still very, very much so strict keto, I got a salad with blue cheese dressing and I ate it at a restaurant. And midway through eating that salad, I had the biggest migraine of my life. And I can 100% attribute that to the seed oils on that blue cheese dressing. Because in terms of my macros, very compliant, very compliant. Why am I getting a headache from this meal? So not only the processing of the foods are huge influencers of our health, but also the quality of our foods.
so food is, uh, I think food is the most important of the factors, but that doesn't diminish the importance of the other factors for health. And among the things I read, you do work with people on sleep, exercise,
Oh,
uh,
huge.
mindfulness, all these things. So talk to me about a little bit of those, and in general, what to do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the biggest levers are going to be, the what out there, it's called the, calories in, calories out, the food and your exercise, right? We got to manage how much food we're eating, and we got to move, right? But that is not all of it. I can tell you that from personal experience, and especially working with females in the midlife stage, it comes to the point where calories in, calories out is just not going to cut it. If you are overstressing, if you're undersleeping, you are going to struggle. I don't care what diet you follow. I don't care what diet. You can be perfect keto. And if you're not sleeping and you're not managing stress, and to me, those they both go hand in hand, because the biggest stressor in our society today is lack of sleep. Because lack of sleep is a stressor. And then add the other stressors to your life. The fact that you hate your husband, you hate your job, you're just a miserable person. You are asking for trouble, and then you wonder why keto is not working for you.
We walk around with these little things, and
Disruption of the circadian rhythm,
this
stimulating.
is definitely a stressor, and we don't get off of it until we're falling asleep.
Yeah, I'm telling this whole new war talks going around. I told my husband, do not speak to me about the news. Let me live in a bubble. I do not want the stress. I know when I hit perimenopause, one of the things that I had to work on to get the needle moving again was to manage my stress. And I sleep as if I was getting paid for it. That's how serious I take my sleep, because it is that serious. Fat loss, fat loss happens at night. We must mind our sleep.
All right. What else? Uh, Obviously, you do. Uh, you've done training before, exercise training, and you talk to your people. Not everybody's at the same starting point. When you're so metabolically sick that you cannot, telling someone, oh, get up and exercise. might be an insult, but everybody can start somewhere. So what do you
Exactly.
normally do with your people?
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I'm going to answer that question with two examples. I worked with an 84-year-old referred by his son. Actually, I've treated the entire family. So the son refers me the dad, 84-year-old, newly diagnosed diabetic, 6.8 A1C. Super, super. And at that point, I'm like, 84. I'm not going to put you through with my month of restriction. You're 84, I'm just going to do some, mild things. But he was so super highly motivated. I did put him through the level of restrictions. We went from 6.8 to 5.6 in 3 months. Reversal. But he again, I took advantage that he was highly motivated, and he was biking his stationary bike on a daily basis for 45 minutes. So for him, it was a combination of both the diet and the exercise. That's how we were able to do significant improvement in 3 months. But he did include exercise, but that's because he was highly motivated. Okay, so depending on who I'm working with, if he wasn't highly motivated, the story would have changed. So the lady that I mentioned earlier, that I'd had a 3-month follow up with her earlier today, she's 75. And we're working through her diabetes, and he has significantly improved. She was not as highly motivated for movement, but with mindset coaching, I've been able to get her to walk post meals and to do resistance training, very light stuff, like with 2-pound weights. In fact, today, the challenge for her for the next 3 months, because I don't work with her one-on-one, it's just every 3 months. I give her the instructions and she tackles on her own, and then we follow up in 3 months. So for these next 3 months, my challenge to her was, those 2-pound weights are not doing anything anymore. Even though we made significant improvement to your fasting glucose and your A1C, your insulin is still 15. So we got to move the needle with the A1C, with insulin. So I don't want to do more restrictive stuff with the diet. Keep the diet as is. Let's manipulate this with movements, especially resistance training. So I asked her to move the 2-pound dumbbells to 5 pounds and then to 7.5 in 3 months. I told her to add one more walk a day and to increase the weight. And that's how we're going to be working with the insulin resistance that's remaining, trying to drop her insulin levels through manipulating her muscle, making those muscles more insulin sensitive. And you need resistance training for that. I mean, she was doing chair squats, body weight stuff, and then just really, really, really super light weights. I think she got a little nervous. Hey, do you think I'll be able to handle that? And I'm like, yes, you're going to be able to handle that. The body adapts. You've been doing 2-pound dumbbells for 3 months. That's not tickling your muscle fibers anymore. They need to be challenged. So let's bring that up. And then we're going to bring that up yet again halfway through. And that's how we're going to try to move the needle without any more changes to the diet to get that the insulin down, because the diet has been working to bring the A1C down, but the insulin is still a little bit too high for my liking. So I told her, let's bring it down to the single digits, like a 9, below 10. And then, because she's also not wanting to remain that restrictive in her diet. She's Dominican, she's Latina. It's hard for her. And even though she rated herself 10 out of 10 with compliance with her diet, and the blood work reflects that she has indeed been good, because otherwise we wouldn't have that improvement, her insulin levels are still a little higher than what I like. So I told her, let's just, instead of changing the diet, continue what we've been doing, and let's just add more resistance training to make those muscles more sensitive so we can bring that insulin down. And adding another walk per day. She was doing only one walk. I'm like, I want you to walk post every meal, and she's eating 2 meals a day.
All right.
So it all depends on who I'm working with, and also the mindset. How motivated are you? What access do you have? She's a really high stress person, so I had to lay everything out with her with like pictures of the exercises to reduce that level of stress, to make it easier for her.
So we were talking just a minute ago about sleep, and someone asked, Ada, how much sleep does one require?
I don't care about numbers. I care about quality. You can sleep 10 hours a day and have pretty shitty, sleep. quality sleep. So I want quality versus quantity. If you want a number to quantify it, the general rules anywhere between 7 and 9. But I am not so concerned about the numbers, because I can sleep you 10 hours and not have any restorative sleep, and I can
So,
sleep 6 hours and have amazing sleep.
do you have your clients track the
I
quality of sleep? What do you use
I
to do that?
really do push them. Like, I do wear an Oura ring, but most people don't have Oura rings. But most people have a smartwatch. I have them at least wear the smartwatch, and it's just to have. They're not as accurate, of course, but just to give you awareness. What I'm looking for is the awareness. Just the awareness. I don't care if the numbers are right or wrong. You'll be able to have some level of awareness when you start see the trends. If your HRV is typically on the ground, see how that's changing as your lifestyle starts to change. The amount of REM sleep, the amount of deep sleep, the hours of your sleep, your resting heart rate, so important. Your resting heart rate, how high is it? How low does it go? When you start to see those numbers either drop or go up, that's data that you can collect, regardless of if it's accurate or not. Is it going down? Is it going up? What's happening?
Thank you, Ada, for being here today. We are up in the hour now. And I put it in the show notes, or Alia did, but I want you to tell us, where can we find you?
Well, I am not a big social media person, but if you were to follow me on social media, the Wellness Room LLC is my handle on Instagram. That's where I'm most active. I am very active on stories. I pretty much document my entire day on stories. I am not very active posting stuff, but I like to lead by example, not just tell you stuff. I mean, look at what I do. And with caveats, of course, you're not me and I'm not you, but it's just to show you how you are able to create a lifestyle um, that is rooted in wellness and that is conducive to maintaining one, good health and good weight management, both.
Okay.
So
And
the
you also
wellness,
have a website, which is,
AddaRamos.com.
okay, two D's in the Ada, by the way.
Yes, I'm unique.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being here.
My pleasure.
Uh, the ones that are here, please like, share, comment, subscribe. We're going to be in Boston this weekend. We're going to have a big lineup. Dr. Boss is going to be there, Dr. Lisa Widerman, Dr. Kiltz, Dr. Nelson. And we have a lot of people with very good stories, reversal of multiple sclerosis. We
Wow.
also have Dr. Stone and the people who are making the documentary Healing Humanity. So, Boston this weekend, there's still a few tickets available. The link is in the description. And we'll see you tomorrow at 6 a.m. We're every Monday through Friday, by the way, Ada. You're welcome to come at 6 a.m. We changed it just for you because the last time I asked you, it was 5 a.m. So,
Yeah.
uh,
I need my sleep, Dr. Nelson. It's part of my wellness pillars.
all right. So, we'll see you tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. You have a good day.